So first of all, let me say a huge thank you for coming and joining us and seeking to serve us this evening. I know you've left behind your boys. You should be able to see them on the screen. You'll tell us more about them later. Thank you for doing that, first of all. Yeah, there they are. Cute. But it's been a real privilege for me, just these past 2 years, getting to know you. Lots of these guys haven't a clue who you are. So could you share who you are, where you're based, a little bit about yourself, and particularly how it is that you're serving currently within the IFES family?
Absolutely. Hey, guys. Aren't they cute, my boys? Yeah. So I'm Sarah. I'm married to my best friend, Renee. We have been married for 13 years. We are from Brazil, as you can see in our shirts. And we've actually met in our CU back in Brazil. So, hey, you never know. We have two highly energetic boys. Pietro, he is 9 years old, and Matteo, he's turning 8 years old this Saturday. They're so cute. And Renee and I felt called to Crosscultural Missions, and we moved 9 years ago to Italy, to Rome, Italy. And we've church planted there. Renee pastors the church that we church plant, and I've always loved student ministry and work with student ministry. So I currently work with IFES Europe with evangelism training and serving as director of Revive Europe Conference. Hashtag best job ever.
It's not bad. I mean, staff worker, best job ever. But fun fact for you all, right? Fun fact about Sarah, I think my favourite fact, is that she accidentally ended up running a full marathon. Accidentally. And maybe if you see her around at Forum, you can ask her how that happened. But the other thing that's really struck me, Sarah, is just your real sense and desire to live a life that basically is just saying yes to Jesus, willing to follow him with all of your life. Can you share with us about your first yes to cross-cultural mission?
Yes, absolutely. I was a little girl, and it was a Christian camp south in Brazil, and they had this bonfire with all the children. And I remember very vividly, they were sharing the story of this little girl who moved with her parents to India, and my heart was burning. And I knew that was God had for me.
Great. And then later on you had that tested. Could you just share a little bit about what it was like when you came to that crossroads?
Yes, so when I was 22, Renee and I, we had just graduated from the top business school in Latin America, and Unilever was offering this executive trainee program. And it was kind of a big deal. They had 30,000 applicants, and they were selecting 30 to train to the next leadership of the company. And I liked business, was really drawn to business, and was very, very conflicted. Anyway, I was in the selection process, and it was months of interviews and group dynamics, and I got it to the top 60 and was headed to my very final interview. So I was just, talking with Jesus about it, and I sensed that he was saying, hey, Sarah, if you want to be a businesswoman, I will bless you. But I sensed he was saying, hey, would you trust me to what I'm preparing for you? And that was the hardest yes that I said. So I headed to that interview, and they asked me straight, what is your plan for the next 10 years? What is your dream? And I knew that the answer to that question would determine the trajectory of my life. So I took a deep breath and remembered that little girl, and I looked at them and I say, yeah, my dream, ever since I was a little girl, my dream was, I'm a Christian, and my dream is to serve with cross-cultural missions. And for me, my yes to Jesus meant a no to Unilever. Yeah.
It comes at great cost, doesn't it, actually, as we say yes to Jesus. Actually, that's going to mean saying no to a whole plethora of other things. And you've shared with me a little bit about really feeling the cost a little bit later on, and really kind of starting to question your yes a little bit. Yeah. Do you want to share some more?
Yeah, absolutely. So after that, Renee was working in a bank, quit his job. I turned out the Unilever, and we moved to Canada to study theology. And we didn't have any money. And I got a summer job to help us pay for the bills. And it was a heavy cleaning summer job. And I just remember very vividly this afternoon that I was cleaning a green kitchen floor there in Canada. And I was feeling so confused. And I just had a very raw moment with God and say, hey, God, like I've left everything, to follow you. And my colleagues, they're getting promoted. My parents, they love me so much in the most loving way. They said, hey, Sarah, we're concerned that you might have wasted your talent. And I was just telling God, God, I'm so confused. What are you doing? I'm here rubbing this kitchen floor, And I just sensed Jesus was so close and say, hey, Sarah, I'm refining your heart. Would you trust me in this journey? So that was a bit, for me, of a symbolic image of that season.
Yeah, great. And then if we fast forward 9 years or so, you and your husband, as you've been in Italy, as you've followed God's call to plant a church, you've just seen him work in mighty ways. I love hearing the stories. We can't share all of them tonight, so do grab Sarah. But you've seen people turn to Christ, both in the church and in student ministry. What is it like for you as you look back over those years and as you see what God has done?
Yeah. I thought last night was so powerful when John Lennox said that it's a meaningful experience when we first lead someone to Christ. And for Renee and I, it was incredibly meaningful the first time we led an Italian to Christ. So we were there for 5 months in Rome, and there was this student, Giovanni. He's a student of statistics, and he had come to a missions event, and he was checking out. We were hanging out, being friends, and we had the Seekers Bible study. And one particular evening we were studying, we just had the study of the parable of the prodigal sons. So Renee and I were watching him, and we could see that he was very moved, So we invited him after the study. Hey, can we chat a little bit longer? And we just say, it looked like there was something going on with you during the study. And he was saying, yeah, it almost felt like God was calling me back home, he was saying. And you could see he was touched, and then say, hey, do you wanna come back home tonight, And to hear his yes, and he prayed this beautiful prayer. And I just remember closing my eyes thinking, God, thank you. It's so worth it, it's so worth it. And then that night, he posted in social media to all his friends, I've decided to follow Jesus. He was so open about it. And it was so meaningful for us. And my parents visited us not long after. And to see my parents talk with him, which was, I love my parents, was not an easy process for them to let me go. And when they met Giovanni and met the other seekers and saw what God was doing, for me, meant the world to me. They're now we really see it. God was calling you guys here, wasn't he? For me, meant a lot that. And we had no idea that Giovanni was going to be just the first one. And by God's grace, to God's glory, it became, so many people following. And for us, it's such a joy. Now we have 52 friends that have been baptized in these 9 years. So it's just to see, Jesus did it, Emma. Jesus did it. It's so worth it.
Thank you, Sarah. It's so wonderful because so many of us sat here tonight know that same experience as we've opened Uncover Mark or perhaps Uncover John, and as Jesus just walks off the pages. Cross-cultural mission is just doing some of the ordinary things that we're already doing now here, but with God. So as we sit here tonight, Sarah, I just wondered, what would you say to someone who is starting to feel something of, maybe overseas, going somewhere and serving is what God is calling me to do? If they're sensing that, and they have some of the similar fears, they're anticipating some of those things that you shared tonight, what would you have to say?
I would say Jesus is so faithful. He really is faithful. I don't know this here. I know this in my gut. I can trust him, I've seen it in my life. So these fears I can relate, they're so real. But in looking at this room, every time I come to UCCF and hear you guys' story, how you guys are going all in for Jesus here in UK is so refreshing to my soul. And then to, have the privilege of traveling sometimes across Europe and other places and see that it's so true that the harvest is plentiful, plentiful. And the workers are few. So if you're in that place that you sense that cross-cultural missions is what Jesus is whispering to your heart, trust him, trust him. It's worth to waste it all because Jesus is worth it.
Thank you. We're going to come back to that later on this evening. I'm thinking particularly about what do we do? Cross-cultural missions. We can't all go. God does want to keep some of us here in the UK, but we're going to help you guys think that through. But currently, Sarah, you've got responsibilities for directing Revive and making that happen. Some of us might know about it. I know a group here are heading over, but for those of us who don't, can you explain a little bit about what Revive is?
Yes, absolutely, my joy. So this was this was 3 years ago that Jesus woke me up in a night in Oxford. I happened to be there just 3 days, December 2016. And this time, IFES every 4 years puts together a European Student Evangelism Conference, and it was a privilege to be invited to direct that conference. But I was, holding back to that decision because I love evangelism and love Europe, but I wanted to see if that was the voice of Jesus, if that was. But he was so kind to just wake me up in the middle of the night and confirm it. Anyway, long story short, after process of forgiveness that Jesus led me, after that process, he released so much hunger, for his presence and hunger to be close to him. And with that, what I would call it is supernatural hunger to see a move of God in the student generation in Europe, a move of God. I'm hungry for a move of God in the student generation here. Is anyone here hungry for a move of God in the student generation in Europe? So with that, we spent months interviewing some of the Gen Secs in Europe, and we felt that to put together Revive, it will be at the end of this year. And it's been so amazing to see how Jesus is putting things together. We will be thousands of students from more than 40 countries around Europe to be 5 days together studying Acts 1 to 5 and going after God with all our hearts. And the British in the UK is not disappointed. We already have 130 people here from the UK going, which is awesome. Yes, and many more to come.
Yeah, I've been a part of these gatherings both as a student and whilst as a staff worker. I just love the experience of gathering the rest of our family. It's great, isn't it, as we sit here tonight in these seats, learning from one another. But being able to learn from brothers and sisters in different situations just adds a whole new depth. And so it's a great opportunity. And I hear, Sarah, that actually, for those of us that are at Forum, for the next 2 weeks, you're offering us a special deal. Yeah,
so hear this out. So the real cost to put together this conference is a 3-year planning process. So the real cost is 300 euros to put together. But here at the Forum, can I hear like, 99 pounds. I mean, seriously, how cool is that? So it's only for the first 50 spots. So it's first come, first base. You get for 99 pounds. After that, you'll be 149 pounds. But you get to go and be part of the biggest party of the decade, lifting up Jesus high with people from 40 nations entering into the new decade together. Experience Europe like never before. You guys cannot miss it.
That's great. I'm going to be there. Will you? Join us tomorrow if you want to hear more about this. We're going to be in 7 Lodge at 4:30. You'll find it in your programs. Come and hear more, ask your questions, and we'll help you make the next steps. If you're already sure, just head over to the IFE stands in the hub, and you can sign straight up. It'd be a real shame, wouldn't it, as we sat here tonight and considered, is World Mission for me, if we didn't consider just praying for brothers and sisters around the world. I often get asked, how can we as a CU be generous in World Mission? We can all pray. And so we're going to do that, and we're going to do that in a different way. So as part of Revive, so if you've got a particular heart for praying ahead of the conference, so there have been these videos designed. Some of you might have already seen them. There's one for UCCF. But we're going to hear from some of the Balkan countries. So practically, we'll watch a video. It'll help us understand some of the flavour of what's going on in the country. It will direct us how to pray. And as soon as the video finishes, just turn in 2s and 3s and just pray. Pray as you've been directed, as you're led. And then we'll hear from another country, and we'll do the same again. So let's pray together now.